So, I have a problem with survival sandbox games. And technically, it's a couple problems, not just one, but it amounts to one problem, being that simply I don't stick around with survival games for that long. I might quit it like a week in, just because it doesn't do enough that hooks me. And without really thinking about it, you can kind of equate it to things like, maybe the game is too similar to other survival games. It doesn't innovate enough, or something like that. Or one of the pivotal mechanics just isn't fun to do. And stuff like that can be true, but I've given it some thought and I don't think that those necessarily get to the root of the problem. Or problems, I guess. So, of course, I say all that while also having in my mind that my issues aren't necessarily going to be the same issues for everybody. In fact, I'm willing to bet that an awful lot of people just like survival games as they are. And on that note, I also don't want the takeaway to be that I think any of these games are bad. I don't think so. I have sunk probably thousands of hours into Minecraft, and at least a couple hundred in several other games that I ended up really liking. But if you share the same issues that I do with survival games, then maybe we can come up with ways to fix them a little bit. I at least have a couple of suggestions that I'd like to get into. Because to me, I think this genre is ripe for innovation. I do personally find that a lot of games are really just derivative, and they don't do anything necessarily for pushing the envelope in a survival setting. And yeah, despite what I just said, there are plenty of games trying their own things with the survival formula. But nonetheless, I want to take the time today to kind of nail down some of the issues that I have with it. Issues that I think other people also share. And maybe if we identify them and come up with ideas, then we can maybe start giving devs some idea of what we want out of these games. Man, I hate transitions. Anyway, the first thing I have to talk about, why does all the combat suck in these games? Like, they get the job done, right? But considering that survival games are kind of incentivizing long play sessions and therefore a long overall play time, I think it would go a long way to actually make the combat feel good. And if you've been around the block, you know that this can be fixed. You can basically take any well-known survival game and put some sort of combat mod on it, and that'll at least make it different, but I don't know, I feel like the core experience just doesn't mesh well a lot of the time. In a game like Minecraft, the effort to make combat more enjoyable is definitely commendable, but the enemies you face in Minecraft just aren't built for substantial changes in the combat system. But there are other games with focuses on the combat system. I played Valheim for a little bit and did enjoy what it offered in terms of just the combat, but there's a part of me that still felt like it was kinda shallow. And again, it serves the systems that that game has. I don't know, maybe I'm just used to more involved combat in other games, but there is a survival game that I do know about that does have a focus on combat, at least if you get good enough ways into it. I'd say second only to Minecraft, the survival game that I've poured the most time in is probably Terraria. To me, it seems like that Terraria's sole focus is basically just its progression. It's really simple by basically just giving you more stats to turn up things like movement and damage, but just those are enough to make the gameplay feel really fun. Weirdly though, thinking more about it, it's almost kind of hard to quantify Terraria as a survival game at that point though. Like, maybe when you start, but I don't know, there's not really a whole lot of building or stat management you have to worry about in Terraria, other than basically just getting stronger. Which is cool and unique, but still doesn't really feel like a survival game to me. It might have started development as a survival game, and the beginning of your playthrough might look like one, but ultimately you won't end the game feeling like that. So to me, it kinda doesn't really count. I do like how games like Starbound handle their weapons though. Something as simple as just pressing right click does another attack and consumes some sort of meter feels like a step in the right direction for me. So maybe we do something like that. Maybe we make it to where weapons have like unique attacks or something associated with them, some sort of secondary action that they can do, used specifically for combat, but maybe for other things too if you want to get fancy with it. I am a fan of a good dodge roll, but it's not exactly necessary. And I don't know, let's just make it interesting. Moving on from combat though, let's talk about the all-time hot topic of grinding in survival games. Now I don't know about y'all, but man am I tired of punching trees for wood. Like, for me at least, I feel like I've been doing it for at least 5 years and I'm kind of over it. More specifically, I'm just kind of tired of grinding for specific materials in survival games, especially whenever you start, because it can make getting back into a survival game like just a chore, basically. I don't mind doing it for like 10 minutes at the beginning of a game, but like basically any longer and you'll start to lose me. This is specifically delving into the innovation side of it that I was talking about. I don't think there's necessarily any new ways to gather wood in a video game that you can come up with that would be both fun and make sense, but if you find a way to, then kudos. That specific beginning part of the game, whether or not it's gathering wood or looking for a place to build your house or whatever in any survival game, is a good way to get familiar familiar and immersed in your surroundings. And especially in a new game, it actually works to its advantage a lot of the time. I just don't think it's supposed to happen for very long. Lately, a lot of newer survival games are coming out with methods for automation, making it to where you can start automatically accruing some of the lesser resources. And therefore, some of the progression path is basically the ability to make some of those harder materials automatically gatherable so you don't have to go out and do it. And barring some really specific exceptions, I think all of these systems are really, really good. Specifically, I like how in Palworld you basically start with the option of automation. That's great because it's exactly addressing the issues that I have with survival games right now, at least in terms of material grinding. Now, I do understand that this specific part of survival games is really relaxing to a lot of people. I certainly think so. But again, the point where it becomes a chore is not very relaxing. Chores just aren't relaxing if you're forced to do them. So make it brief. And if not, then make it an adventure, even if that adventure is just a Sunday stroll. Because if progression isn't consistently interesting, then you're gonna start to lose me. Personally, anytime whenever I come across like a new ore in a survival game, I go, oh cool, I wonder what kind of weapon I can make that into. How strong or how durable it is. And similarly, if I come across a new material that's strictly for building, then I should be asking questions like, I wonder what that's going to look like if I turn it into bricks or something. And I think that process just needs to be enjoyable. Not a chore, not something you're forced to do. And no, don't worry, I understand that strictly building materials can be turned into some variant of bricks or something, but it's just not fun. And if it can't be any of those things, then it certainly can't be very long. I know this topic is really vague, but it's also because the sort of vagueness surrounding progression and grinding has a lot of potential ways you could fix it. I want to say that the most concrete way to fix progression and grinding is basically just going to be based on the game itself. What systems they implement for the progression and how you go about grinding is going to be something that's on a case-by-case basis. I just implore any devs out there to kind of take a look at it and, wonder if it's fun, and not just a by-the-numbers checkbox that they have to fill in. My final point, just mostly for the sake of having 3, is proper implementation of horror in survival games. Let me start off this point by saying that I think the genre most primed to light horror scenarios out of anything else other than horror itself is probably survival games. You don't even need to think about it all that hard. You're in a hostile scenario that wants you dead. It's survivable but not quite comfortable living, at least not yet. So you're gonna come across instances of strife and stress as you go throughout your journey. Let me also say that I don't necessarily want every survival game to be a horror game. But every survival game is pretty inclined to sudden horror. You see something way too big that probably definitely has a health bar and a giant fist that's gonna pulverize you. So of course that's gonna have some horror in it. I'm sure each and every one of us has had some instance of some sort of creature in Minecraft scaring us out of nowhere. It's just primed for that. And in this way, to amplify both the moments of levity and the little bits of horror, why not have a somewhat equal focus of both of those things to further propel the entire game all around the board? The overworld in Minecraft during daytime is pleasant and not super hostile a lot of the time, unless you're playing with mods mostly. But when it's nighttime or you're in a cave, suddenly you're on edge all of the time. And a stray arrow or the hissing of a creeper is definitely going to catch you off guard, even though you do expect something in the darkness. It just works, but part of the, I guess, fantasy of being in a hostile scenario, one that you can still try to make a living in, is the moments where you have to go out into dangerous areas. And why not make those areas feel dangerous? Have a little bit of dread of going into a cave. Or, just something like that. And yeah, I think that might be everything I wanted to mention. I'll go ahead and close out this video. Let me know if there's any survival games that you think I need to try. I haven't played all of them, but I'm always willing to play with some friends and try to figure out some sort of cool new survival experience to play. And if you have any big problems that you missed or just disagree with me entirely, then leave it in the comments. I love talking with people and debating over stuff. But yeah, that's gonna do it for me. Y'all have a good one. Like and subscribe and join the Patreon as always.